we are going to start with generation and conduction of nerve impulse. Our today's topic is generation and conduction of nerve impulse. Now, the neurons, they are the excitable cells and their membranes are in polarized state. Let us see what do we mean by the polarized state. This is what shown is the axon. This is a portion of axon. This is the membrane of axon, and this region is exoplasm. That is the cytoplasm inside the axon is exoplasm. Now, when no nerve impulse is being conducted, when the nerve or the neuron is at resting stage, means it is not conducting any nerve impulse, तो हम क्या देखते हैं कि the membrane of the axon, it is more permeable to potassium ions and less permeable, or we can say nearly impermeable to the sodium ions. When the neurons, they are not conducting any impulse, at that time the membrane of axon is said to be at resting stage. Resting stage matlab it is not conducting any nerve impulse, and at that stage it is more permeable to potassium ions, means more potassium ions they can leave the membrane of axon in, and it is nearly impermeable to sodium ions, and sodium ions are they cannot leave or enter the membrane of axon that easily. So this is the resting stage, and different type of ion channels they are present in the neural membrane. This is shown. This is the sodium potassium exchange pump, and these ion channels they are selectively permeable for different ions. Now, as a result, we said that this membrane is more permeable to potassium ion and nearly impermeable to the sodium ions. As a result, the exoplasm on inside the axon, it contains high concentration of potassium ions and negatively charged proteins. This negative sign, it represents the negatively charged proteins. यानी एक्सोप्लाज्म में किसकी concentration ज़्यादा है? It has high concentration of potassium ions and negatively charged proteins, and there is low concentration of sodium ion. Whereas the fluid present outside the axon, इस axon के बाहर जो fluid है, that has low concentration of potassium ion and that has high concentration of sodium ion. And this difference in potential, this difference in the concentration gradient, it leads to the ionic gradient. This leads to the concentration gradient, and the ionic gradient means difference in the concentration of ions across the resting membrane. It is maintained by sodium potassium exchange pump. ये sodium potassium exchange pump क्या करता है? It transports 3 sodium ions outward for 2 potassium ions into the cell. यानी 3 सोडियम आयंस के बाहर आउटवर्ड मूवमेंट, when movement of 3 sodium ions takes place towards the outer surface, then only 2 potassium ions they can enter inside the cell. यानी 3 sodium ions के बाहर जाने के पीछे 2 potassium ions they can enter the cell. As a result, outer surface of the axonal membrane, it becomes positively charged, and the inner surface of the axonal membrane, it becomes negatively charged. तो एक ही मेम्ब्रेन के दोनों तरफ चार्जेस क्या हो गए? डिफरेंट हो गए. बाहर क्या है, ऑन द आउटर सरफेस देर इज मोर पॉजिटिव चार्ज और ऑन द इनर सरफेस देर इज मोर नेगेटिव चार्ज. तो अब क्या हो गया, देर इज डिफरेंस इन चार्जेस एंड दिस मेम्ब्रेन इज सेड टू बी polarized. And the electrical potential difference across the resting potential membrane, it is called resting potential. यानी हमने क्या कहा कि जब न्यूरॉन या हम ये कह सकते हैं नर्व सेल, व्हेन इट इज नॉट कंडक्टिंग एनी नर्व इम्पल्स, इट इज एट रेस्टिंग स्टेज, तो ये जो मेम्ब्रेन है it is more permeable to potassium ions and nearly impermeable to sodium ions. And on the uh, inner side, inside of axon, there is high concentration of potassium ions and negatively charged proteins. On the outer surface of this axon, it has low concentration of potassium ion and high concentration of sodium ion. This leads to a concentration gradient, and this ionic gradient is maintained by sodium potassium exchange pump, which transports 3 sodium ions to the outside and 2 potassium ions towards the inner side. As a result, outer surface becomes positively charged and inner surface of axon it becomes negatively charged. And because of these differences in the charges on two sides of the membrane is said to be polarized. And electric potential difference across the plasma membrane, जो potential difference generate होता है, that is called resting potential.